Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast for Black Women Connect Vancouver, Girl You Know It. So I'm the founder of Black Women Connect Vancouver, which started in 2017. And Black Women Connect Vancouver is a collective of women who come to inspire, empower, and leverage our strengths and embrace our diverse experiences. It is a community where we can build meaningful relationships and celebrate the beauty of our Black womanhood. I hope that you enjoy it.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Girl You Know It. We are your hosts, Elle, Palesa, and Nataizya. We are on episode 6 of season 2. Can you believe we have come this far? It's very exciting. All the topics that we've addressed, all the topics that we're planning to talk about. The last couple episodes, we talked about International Women's Day, and last episode, we talked about feminism and womanism. And this week, we're going to focus, we're going to laser in, we're going to talk about Black women and our high functioning ways and what that looks like. And we've touched on it a couple times in past episodes, even in past events like the mental health and wellness event that was put on a couple years ago. But I think it warrants its own episode. And I think there's no better time to talk about it at this point where we're all hustling. I feel like we all have like 300 billion side hustles, and it's like for why and for what and for whom. And like we enjoy it, but also boundaries and self-care. So let's talk about it. I want to pose a question. Tell me you're a high functioning Black woman without saying you're a high functioning Black woman. I'll go first. I forgot that we were recording today. There were so many things going on. And I got a text from Palesa being like, I'm so excited to record. I'm like, oh, snap. Too many things going on. So that's mine.
I'll go second. I have reconfigured my brain to think that doing one of my other projects is actually my downtime and my fun time, and that I enjoy doing this project more than the others, because this one I get to be creative and use, that fire. Yeah. But it's a lie.
Oh man, Nataizya.
Mine. Oh, let me bring my laptop because in case I want to watch movies and stuff on my vacation.
Yes, that's you. Yes. Right?
But no, I'm just secretly bringing it to check on stuff.
Right?
I have another one. I'm going to go to the library and buy all of these books on trauma because I'm trying to read for fun.
Like always hustling. We're always hustling, even during our quote unquote downtime. And I think it's fed into or it's informed by this whole, Black women holding it down narrative, strong Black women, Black girl magic, which to a certain extent, I think is a really grand thing. It's a really great thing to explicitly say the magic that we permeate into the world. But sometimes it's it can infringe on harmful because we put ourselves in situations where we feel like we have to like always achieve, and failure is not an option. And because we put ourselves in these high functioning, high stressful situations, the vicious cycle and the coping mechanisms may not be the best for us. So my question to you or to all of us is, where are you right now on a scale of 1 to 10 in this, Black woman high functioning, and why? What are your side hustles? I should be asking.
Our business.
You can be as discreet. You can be as like I'm cute. I'm gonna keep it cute, but I'm gonna tell you that I'm holding it down like 5 different places.
That's fair. I think actually I'm kind of changing mine. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably at like a 5. I'm still doing all of the projects that I was doing and all of the things that I want to do, but I think I'm spending a little bit less time trying to promote it or to talk about it, and more time actually just doing it and focusing in on like the core projects and stuff like that. It does mean that you're gonna not see me in some places for a while, and that for me is kind of like how I'm maybe once again lying to myself, being like, no, if we're not on here, we can just dive into this and drown in here. We don't have to drown on the internet, whatever. I'm drowning outside of the internet. That's where I am.
Nataizya, that's how you started to count. You were like doing this with your fingers. I was like, girl, you're gonna your second hand.
Yeah, I would probably say I'm also at a 5. I would say like there's just days where I can just manage it well, and then there's days where I'm just not. So I think I would say I'm a 5 because I can halfway get there, but then I can halfway fall back.
I think I'm like a 5 or a 6. I also think women in general, and to a certain extent more Black women, tend to be that dog in the fire, in the room of fire, and be like, this is fine, like this is fine, like no big deal, like add the fire, like no problem. And I found that like this past couple months, actually the last year, where everybody's like, oh yeah, pandemic, I'm gonna have so much downtime. It's like I feel like I've added to my workload so much, and I'm trying to find this balance between like achieving and protecting, and being productive, and also finding things that are generative. Palesa, you said, yeah, I'm gonna go to the library and like read some books, but like specifically about like how to like make myself better and like work on my trauma, and that like is cool and all, but it's not downtime. And I think that there's something to be said about us having to work towards downtime and like program our brain. And like, I don't know, like, how do you think that can be done in a way that's helpful and like doesn't allow us to go like hide in a hole in fetal position and be like, it's too much, the world is too much, I don't know how to go on.
I know. Like, isn't this the conversation? Like, this is my counseling session.
I think that's why I was so excited, because like I have been when I was going to counseling, I was working through this. I was working through like, why is it that like I can't feel comfortable just being okay with doing joyful things for the sake of just joy, and not doing things to like be productive. And I had a really good conversation with my sister about this. I was like, I'm not like, I was talking about working out and how I used to love working out. And now it feels punitive. It feels like I'm punishing my body, trying to like get it back into the way that it used to like feel and look like. And so like when I try to go work out, it doesn't feel good. And she's like, that's not like generative. I'm like, what's the difference? And she's like, well, generative, you're doing stuff just for joy. Like you're doing stuff to like love yourself and like to add value just for the sake of adding value, right? So that like, I don't know, like I feel like as a generation of Black women, social media's here, we want to show that we're doing all the things, but like, when it's too much, when like information overload, how do we take a step back and like go, okay, no, I need to say no. Like how do we learn to say no is kind of a redirection of that question.
Whew, I don't know. When you figure it out, please call me, because I'd like to be in that no train too. I'm just kidding. I think that for me, a good way that I've had to practice saying no is to practice it with myself, is to be able to state my own boundaries with myself and to say like, okay, well, for me, productivity in this day and age now, right now that I'm 29, in this day and age, looks very, very different than A, when I was working in corporate, and then also B, when I was in school, right? I think that the institutions and the programming that we've gone through makes us want to do this productive thing. And it's almost this like repeat, what is it called? Like we learn to memorize and then we just regurgitate it back out. I think we're so used to being in this autopilot mode that we don't know how to break out of it, right? And how to break out of it where we don't have to be keeping score of breaking out of it either, right? Because everything else that we do, you have reports. How many reports have you submitted? How many events have we had? How many podcast episodes are we on, right? Like we enjoy doing the podcast, but it's also tallied at some point, whereas generative activities, that was the word, right? Whereas generative activities, you don't have to tally them, but it's so like for me personally, it was weird to not have to keep track of the downtime. I think that's why it's so hard for me, because I'm so programmed to keep track of everything. I even now have downtime in my calendar, right? So I'm making space for it. And it's kind of like, how do I negotiate that space between, I want to make time for myself, but I also want to stop thinking of time as something that I have to make and curate, and as something that is just there, and that can kind of go back and forth. So I don't know, I'm still figuring it out, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the opposite. I have a very clear boundaries on like with people, but with myself, I don't really have good boundaries. So I think that that's something I'm trying to figure out, is saying no to myself. And I remember doing like a session one time, and my counselor was like, you keep adding like should in your sentences, like I should be able to do this. I should be doing this. Well, this is what I should do. And she's like, you have to remove that from your vocabulary, because that is what makes us not have boundaries with ourselves, because we have this expectation for ourselves to be something that we have an expectation for, not what others have. And so for me, that's my problem. It's like I have high expectations for myself. And so if I don't reach it, or I feel like I'm failing in it, that's when I can like beat myself up, or have to like do twice as hard, or just do more just to make myself feel better so that I accomplish something. But it's actually, like we talked about, like very destructive.
Mhm.
Wow, that should thing, that should word is really, it's harmful. It can be harmful when it's like we have good intentions and we have, good vision for our future. But I think if we're so tunnel vision towards it and don't take like a beat to go, how am I gonna sustainably get there? And we keep adding should, and it's just like we keep just like I'm imagining like the grouse grind, where like you can't really see the top, but it's there, and you just keep taking steps, right? You just keep taking steps, and you're like, but in the back of your head, you're like, maybe it'd be nice just to like take a little break, like right by the side, right here. But you're just like, I just need to keep going to get there, and then you put that pressure, and then some jackers over here is like sprinting up, some white male guy, just flying up the grouse grind. You're like, well, I should be better than him. I started before him, and you're just, still going. So I don't know. I think that's a good point to like take, or like to be very kind and compassionate with the words that we like internally use on the goals that we make. Wow, that's a
Yeah.
word.
I definitely think that compassion during goal setting is really important. And I love that you brought up the word should and could, because the way that it showed up for me is like, I say those things when I am trying to avoid taking accountability for making that decision or not making the decision, right? Because even in not making the decision, you're deciding. So when you say, I should do this, it's like, you should do it, but you're not deciding to do it, so that if you fail at doing it, you don't have to say, oh, I had made that decision and now this is the result. Or even I should do this. So you're like, I can't do this. It's possible to do this. I could achieve it, but I don't want to achieve that success because I know what it comes with, right? It might come with more work. It might come with more reasons to self-sabotage or whatever the case might be. So even that kind of language, makes you opt out of making that decision, but then carries with it all of the shame and the guilt and all of this constant assessment and overthinking, like, I should do this, I should do that, but also I could have done that, I could have done this. And it's like, just take those words out and use can, can't, did, or didn't, because it is indeed a fact that one or the other thing happened. You can't be in that gray middle zone all the time. And that's where frustration comes from, at least for me specifically. Ooh, this is a whole counseling thing. Okay.
I'm excited. Okay, so I'm touching on that, like, could, should, can, will, do, whatever. Because I sit in it and I always go, I should. And like that fills me with like shame, because when I say I should, I have used it in like, I haven't done enough to like reach that goal. I need to push myself far beyond my known limits and capacity and keep going until I halfway reach it or something. Like, it's this weird shame spiral that I now I'm like realizing right now, being like, oh, like I'm project managing this, I should have done that. And it's like the minute I think that, I feel a weight of like guilt and shame on that, being like, I didn't achieve it. I'm feeling as a leader. I think it also feeds into imposter syndrome, right? Like, we're trying to, as Black women, compete. I hate that word, not compete, sorry, but like we are unfortunately measured and compared to our counterparts, you know, white women and white males, and certain things that we do may come across as negative and certain things that they do may come across as positive. So it's like we want to be in this rat race of like achieving and going forward, but also like that's to our detriment as well, because they're putting in half the work and half the energy and nothing, like nothing happens. They're getting all the accolades and it's like, yo, you just stole my idea. Like I worked so hard on that and you took it, and cool. But I think I have to reprogram again the way that I deal with it. But that's not for you to help me. I mean, it is, you're my friends, but also that's for a paid therapist to help me with as well.
Yeah, 100%. Do that, please. Get paid therapists to help you. Don't rely on your friends to come and unravel your things, because they can unravel it, but who says they can help you put it back together, right? Or, you know, even vice versa, they might not be able to unravel it, but they can help you kind of stitch it back together. But you do got to not rely on them, because they're people too, right? And those other folks are professionals. They've studied it, they're choosing, and they're willing. And I think it's also a concept of consent. Like, therapists and counselors are consenting to you telling them all of your truths and all of your whatever is happening, right? Whereas even in our friendships, maybe we might even breach that level of consent, like, oh, now I'm going to tell you this whole thing, right? We don't, at least for me, I'm noticing that I still need to negotiate, even in my really good, deep friendships. Like, you know, if something does happen, or, you know, I'm going through something, I can't always just be like, oh yeah, I have friends that I have really deep conversations with, so blah, right? It's like, no, you still have to negotiate what you who and what you're leaning on. As being high achieving women, I have a question to pose. How do you take care of yourself? Because I think we wanted to talk about self-care in the beginning of the year in one of the episodes. And I think it's always so good now, at least because I know you personally, and I know that you're going through the most. It's a lot. How are you taking care of yourselves? How are you practicing self-care? If you are, even if it's just by intention, how are you folks doing it?
Oof. I have a paint by numbers that I do 1 minute or 5 minutes a week, and that's it. Like, my goal was to go, okay, I'm gonna like relax, I'm gonna put on some good music, and I'm gonna finish this paint by numbers. It's gonna be grand. I'm gonna gift it. It's hanging right here, and it's shaming me, and it's looking at me. So I try, but
That's all.
I mean, that's it. Like, that's the thing. I borrowed a book from Palesa, and Palesa's like, how do you start reading? I'm like, I want to. I definitely want to. And I just have not had the time, because I'm just so tired after I'm looking at the screen for like hours upon hours upon hours. My mind goes between like 4 different like jobs or projects, you know?
Phew, this episode is really for you, Elle.
Wow. I know. I thought I was bad. I'm like, she literally has nothing to name. Just a thing she actually hasn't done.
Two things.
Wow, just dragged, just completely dragged.
By your cuticles.
By my cuticles is dragged.
Wow. Nataizya, spread a little pixie magic on Elle. How do you take care of yourself?
For me, it was kind of similar to Elle, where you're like trying to figure it out. But for me, it's just whatever I actually feel like is taking care of myself. So whether it be having a conversation with the right person or just walking into silence and just having a time like to decompress like after work, and just because everything is so mental what we do, so our brain gets tired, our mental capabilities get tired. So I've noticed that like I need the silence and the quiet to kind of like recalibrate myself. Otherwise, if I just keep going, my mind will just keep going, and then in that moment I just explode. So that's something that I've been practicing a lot. And um just like reflecting a lot more on kind of like things that I'm grateful for. Because when you are high functioning, you kind of lose track of all the like the little wins in your life, or the things you should be celebrating, or just acknowledging yourself in those situations. And I just don't do that. And so I think that that for me has been something that I've learned to do, and that has helped me. So like a time of just like reflecting is helpful for me.
Nice. Nice. Have you done some reflecting, Elle, of things that you're grateful for?
Okay, so coming back. Okay, so I should say that like apparently I do more self-care than I call it. Again, trying to like be more explicit in naming that what I actually am doing is self-care. But if it's not, I have to reprogram. If it's not productive, then it's not self-care. If it's not generative, then it's not self-care. I do have times where I sit in silence and I reflect on my life, and I do that. And I go for lots of walks too. I love walking. It's something that really helps me just to like stop thinking, like put on like either an audiobook or a podcast or music and just like let my mind wander. And that's helpful. So yeah, I think that that's a bit of self-care that I do, that I know that I could be doing more, as opposed to just being like, I'm tired, I'm gonna binge watch Netflix. And like that's turning my brain off, but not in the way that I could be more generative in like the way that I'm resting.
Yeah. Oh, I like that, because I think both of you said something really interesting. Nataizya, you said like, you get fatigue from having to have your brain switched on so much. I find that all of my self-care things kind of still involve using my brain on some capacity. Like I never really switch it off per se, right? Unless I'm like sleeping or whatever the case is. And I've noticed that removing things like, so I'm trying to not watch Netflix, and I'm trying to not watch too much YouTube, just so that when I am having that downtime, I'm trying to do activities where I'm having conversations with myself, and I'm really able to once again reflect, right? And so what that's looked like is like reading poetry books, because of a special project that I want to work on. So like, reading those to kind of, influence me and give me that inspiration for that creativity, but they're still enjoyable, and there's still something for leisure.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started taking baths again. Thank you for the gift that you got me. It had the bath salts. Okay, I found these bath bombs under the bed. They are crusty and dusty, but it's soap. I don't think soap can get off, so I put it in the bathtub too, and it made it all pink. And I was just floated in there, and I was chilling, and I was watching like these educational videos about my culture and like my tribe, and like, kind of investigating different ways. So I think that for me, I'm still trying to not think again, like to tally it up. Like when I'm learning about my culture, it's not so I can shoot a video about it and be like, hey, so this is what I've learned, I'm gonna catch you up on all of this. That's specifically for me, and for me to do a catch up for myself, to feel like, I'm truly investing in things that are just secret for me. I kind of feel like I'm having a little bit of like a secret society with myself. It's awesome.
If y'all didn't know, Palesa had her birthday recently, and she had the most wonderful week of celebrations. We love her. We gifted her with a box. So happy birthday. Happy birthday. I know that we talked about this too, is sleep. So you have a good bedtime, Palesa. Like you go to bed at a certain time. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people need to jump on the train, because I feel like people take for granted how generative sleep can be. And like I just go, oh, I'm gonna go to bed at 12:30. My body will naturally wake me up at like 5. No big deal. I'm just gonna run on this amount of hours, and that's fine. How did you work on like instilling that bedtime and like letting your body just like rest properly?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think it's because I wanted to start waking up earlier. I wanted to start using my mornings for like self-care and meditation and for journaling. And I noticed that my work body clock switches on at like 10 a.m. And that's when I can like dive in, and I have a lot of my meetings and my client calls after that. But before that, I've actually noticed that I have this alertness because I always wake up at like 5 a.m. or I'll wake up and check the time and it's like 5:04 or 5:30. So there's something in me that wants to wake up. So when I noticed that, I was like, okay, cool. I'll just shift my sleep cycle. And it does mean that, I'm missing out on messages maybe, or I'm missing out on a call, when I go to bed at 9 o'clock or at 10 o'clock. But I have to be okay with sacrificing those things and catching up the next day for me, or trying to move kind of those conversations before I go to bed. But it's been really great to have that downtime of going to bed at 9. Now my body gets fatigued at like 9:30, 10. So I have to go to bed. But I don't know. I think once again, it was another experimentation. I was trying to get more out of the day, trying to be super productive, go in, like, don't waste time trying to do the meditation at 10 because you got to work, try and push it earlier. But it seemed to have worked out this time.
Mm, mm. Wow. I feel like I'm a night owl. I'm like an early riser, so that's not great. Nataizya, what about you?
I'm definitely a night owl and a late riser, so I don't know. But for me, sleep has always been an issue since I was a child. So it's been something that's been really, really hard for me to try to figure out. And then it just got worse when you got to like university, college. And then after that, a disaster. So I'm an incredibly light sleeper. And on top of that, then like if things are going on, then I'll have like insomnia, and just like past like health issues have just made it even worse. So I don't know. I've tried everything. Like I'll take stuff to sleep, and not really sleeping pills anymore or anything like that, but like I'll take melatonin or anything that has like oils and stuff. So like I find that helps, but I try not to take it every day so my body's dependent. But I find that that's the only way I can actually get like a full night's rest. But then at the same time, I also suffer for it because I'm groggy, because it's not a natural way of my body sleeping. So it's kind of something that I'm not sure. I think it's just always going to be a struggle. And then I just have to learn to manage it well. So I try to like not schedule certain stuff early in the morning, because I just know I'm mentally just not capable, or I just won't be present. Like I'll be there, but I won't be there mentally with you. Yeah. And I find like deep discussions with people, things like that. I like, usually I'm just like, can we talk about this like 2 hours or so when I'm fully awake? So stuff like that.
Mhm. Is it okay if I give you a recommendation?
You can try.
Okay. I want to start to practice asking people for consent instead of just saying, "Oh, I have
Oh,
an
yeah.
idea for you," right? So I was on one of the apps, and there was a video that came up that was talking about helping folks with insomnia if they're having trouble sleeping. And this person that was recording it takes bananas, and she chops off like the little bit, like the little hard bit of the banana at the top, and then the tail end, and then she keeps the skin on, and she chops up the banana and she boils it for 10 minutes, and then she mashes all of that up and she drinks that, and she says that that's helped her sleep. So that's something that you can drink it with milk and like other sweeteners or whatever that you want. But she said that it works, and I was like, oh, I guess I can recommend this to somebody if they're struggling with sleep. So I would do it, but I'm allergic to bananas, so I can't tell
Yeah,
you.
and I don't really like it.
No. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But I heard like cherries too. Cherries do that.
Did she say like, does it make her sleepy, or make her stay asleep?
I don't think she was specific in like where in the sleep situation it was affecting. She just said that if you're struggling to sleep, do this banana mix. So I would assume it's the maybe insomnia or the getting yourself to sleep. I don't know how much of I don't know. I'm not really a sleep specialist, so
That's okay.
that's a great question. Yeah.
It was just really interesting because I'm like, it's so great that like there are natural remedies for certain things, and we need to be, looking to those as opposed to, like you said, Nataizya, putting something in our bodies that's not natural and then having to suffer the consequences for that. I'm gonna try that. I'm allergic to bananas and I like bananas. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, please try it and then let us know. Let the community know. Who knows? All of y'all might be sleeping. That's probably why I was so tired every time I was going to school. Eating 5 bananas in the morning, just like overdose.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Bringing it back to like the high functioning. We're talking about self-care. I struggle with like being in the bottom, like in the valley. Like how have you found that like if there is like a failure that you're facing head on, or there's like an obstacle and you're just feeling like in that fetal position, like moving forward and like picking yourself back up and getting yourself to do the work or do the activity that you need to do? Because sometimes I feel like we talk about like, oh, we're doing so amazing, we're doing all the things, blah blah blah, but like we don't actually talk about like the real shit, like how people manage, especially during the pandemic when it's been a lot of emotions, it's been a lot of change, it's been a lot of shifting and pivoting, for people who had like businesses and like they completely like fell apart, and like people had dreams and like aspirations. Like how do we move forward in like a time of seemingly despair? Or how have you done that? I'm trying to go deep. Y'all keep trying to be all goofy and lighten it up. This is a deep episode. I didn't prep y'all, but it is.
This is a deep episode. Oh, how have I done that? I don't know. Nataizya, please go first. Let me think.
Like as if I have. I mean, I think for me, like it goes back to boundaries. Like I think for me, just making sure I'm not constantly bombarding myself with what's on the news or on social media, staying in my reality, right? I think that it's very easy when all these things are happening, everything's chaotic, whether it be personal or out in the world. I think it's easy to forget our reality. Like what is actually our reality right now in this moment, in this time? Is it chaotic for myself, right? Not is it chaotic out there? And I think that learning to ground yourself in what your reality is right now it makes more sense. And it's easier for people to do that and finally check and be like, wait, what is the reality of my everyday life? So that's something that I've just been doing. So most times I'm like, oh, don't send me that kind of stuff. Or I'm like, let me just like block this person because they post the kind of that like things like that just cause more anxiety. So for me, that's just usually it's like checking my reality of what's going on right now.
I like that. And I think I do that too. I guess I've just haven't really called it that. That's a really good one, checking your reality. I think another way to move forward is to like, I was talking to a friend who's going to be on my show. And I was talking to her, and what did she say? She said something about this. Give me a second. She said, oh, it is so good. There we go. Okay. So a good way to move forward is to not try to reconcile the past, right? Or the things that have happened in the past. Because a lot of the times when we are overthinking or ruminating, or we think that we're, heading towards this healing direction or moving forward, we're always trying to pick up the pieces from the past, right? We're always trying to say, well, what really did happen, trying to pick away at it. And sometimes the people who are participating in there will never agree with you, or will never give you that leeway or that permission to heal, right? So you have to give yourself the permission to say, the past is the past. I'm not going to reconcile with what happened. But like Nataizya said, what is happening in this present moment, right? I feel like crap. That's how I felt on Monday. I was like, last week was so great. What is happening to me? And then I started thinking, oh my goodness, is it because I'm a little bit late on this project, or is it because I've been spending too much time doing this? this? Am I not doing this? Oh, and then I start thinking like, where am I not performing? Well, how am I not achieving? But in that moment, I was sitting in the bathtub and I was trying to practice self-care. And I was like, that doesn't match what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now is a soothing, calming activity. And so if I try to focus in on that, I was able to kind of stop overthinking. But it's a process. Like all these things you have to keep practicing every single day. I say it even to the folks that I work with, like all the practices that we do in the coaching or the training, even in the events with Lisa that we're having today, is excuse me, like a process of practicing, right? What is it, what was that rule she told us about last time? The 80, was it the 70, 20, 10?
Oh yeah, something like that.
Something like that, right? And so, kind of those kinds of principles, right? To practice them. If we had practiced it and remembered it, now we would actually remember what it is, right? So you have to practice. It's really, really key to practice all of these self-care things. But yeah, that's how I move forward. I just try to not deal with the past in terms of like making sense of it, or, especially if it's not going to help me right now. And then also allowing experts to help me.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really good about like the not trying to reconcile the past. I feel like as we're being more mindful and taking care of ourselves and doing some of the work, some past like things will come up and you want to go and you want to try to explain it and you want to try and figure out, was that my fault? Like, how was I culpable? How could I have done it differently so I could have avoided it coming up now in like my current relationships? But I think that piece of trying not to explain it, I also think there's something to be said too about I'm not like overstepping, but for me, I'm not a vulnerable person. Like I mean, I am now. I am more so now with like, let's say you two or my sisters, but I wasn't. And it was like learning to be vulnerable and knowing that even sharing a little bit is helpful enough to like go, okay, I'm feeling in a pit, like I'm feeling like a pit of despair. How do I not bring someone down with me, but like maybe try and get to a little bit closer to their level and meet them there in their joy and their happiness and their contentment and see and shift my perspective while they are also self-caring for themselves and caring for me. I've it's taken me a long time to be like quite vulnerable. So I think also being vulnerable with myself, because I'm okay with sharing with people sharing with me. I'm always the listener. I'm the person who like, tell me your story. Like, I think that's like my nurse thing come out. Like, I can sit here with you for hours. Like, and they're like, okay, and tell me about you. I'm like, but let's talk more about you. Like, let's go back to you. And everybody's like, like you're also human as well. Like, you need to also connect with that piece of yourself that's like could be struggling or is struggling, and like naming it and voicing it. It removes it from that like loop in your head that you think, oh, it's not real, like I'm making it up. And no, it's really, you're valid in your emotions. So I think that's that piece for me.
Yeah. 100%. I feel like as much as, in psychology, they say Freud does blah, 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 blah. He was right with the talking cure. Like talking is cathartic. Communicating things is cathartic. And, for some people, it doesn't have to be that deep dive communication, like tell you every morsel and it's juicy and it's dripping and you're hanging by a thread, right? Sometimes it can even be the simplest of ways, but you need to get that out of you. Same way as energy. You got to move that stuff out of you, right? Same thing like bowel movements. You have to move it out of you. So our bodies do this thing of expelling stuff, but then we feel like, excuse me, but then we feel like we have throats and vocal cords for nothing. Like, use it. Talk about your stuff, because then you can actually, even start to have conversations with parts of yourself you didn't even know existed, which you're now forgetting, and which could help you self-care. But they're trying to come out. They're like pushing out all this other stuff. They're like, break free. I'm so cartoonish. It's hilarious.
Also, I love how you dropped the plug for your podcast. Like, oh, I'm gonna have something on my podcast.
I wasn't even trying to do that. I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna just call it a show. That's fine. I'll just call it a show. Sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to.
That was great. No, we support each other in all of our endeavors and our side hustles. Heck to the yes. Yes.
I support her. I just have never been a guest, so I'm still a little salty.
It's
But
coming. Just
I fully
wait.
support her. I'm just saying. All I
It's
see
coming. I'm trying to be more professional with my podcast and actually tell a story. So I've literally had to like try to put everybody in the places where they would fit in the story. It's coming. And when it comes, you'll be like, I didn't even know this is gonna be the thing. So don't even come at me with that. I'm not even playing. Carry on. High achieving. See, this is what happens when you're high achieving. Then people are like, "Whoa, where is it?" Immediately, it's not here yet.
Oh, that's also another thing, y'all. Like people trying to. This is no shade, no tea, nothing. But like when people see other women high achieving, high functioning, kicking ass, bomb.com, I always think it's funny, like how people come out of the woodwork and they're like, hey, I'm gonna try to latch on to you. She's like, I'm not saying nothing. But yeah, I think it also comes with that boundary setting as well. You know, like you're trying to practice self-care, you're trying to do the damn thing. I don't have time to also like pick you up in my wingspan and pull you with me. I just don't. I don't have it in me. So I think that comes with that piece of that boundary setting. No matter what capacity you're in, personally, professionally, within a collective, within like your workplace, I think it's important to go, you know what? You stay there. I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna stay in my lane. I'm gonna support you from here. You're gonna support me from there. If we link up, cool, but it's gonna be a mutually like productive thing. So I just want to say nothing.
No, Ella's trying to pull it out of you. Just like, come on. Just baiting you with all of this in a collective, personally. Sprinkle. I'm sorry.
Fair.
No, but
again, it's boundary setting. It's boundary setting.
Yeah.
I'm a reporter, and I'm asking you the question. You're saying no comment. I just respect that. You have not given me consent to continue.
I think it's true. I think
even that. It is boundaries. Like, I get it. It's not that I don't want to say anything. Also, the same thing. It's like people just need to learn that some people just don't have the capacity and take the no and just be like, she just has nothing personal. Like it's nothing personal. That's what drives me crazy. But that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think that's the thing though, right? It's like we're also, I find myself that I'm very much trying to do everything at once for everyone because, you know, I mustn't lie to myself and be like, I'm not here for the fame. I'm not here for the this. Like, I do want to grow a community. I do want to be noticed by people. I do want to, because I also know that being noticed and having a community and having a big following or whatever the case is how you can galvanize attention. And I want to be able to help people to be able to, you know, obviously discover that they're amazing and that they're missing nothing. They just need to renegotiate how to self-regulate in different places, excuse me. Where was I going with this? Boundaries.
It's gone.
I don't know where I was going with this. What were we just talking about? Oh my goodness, my throat has been annoying me for the past week.
You were talking about building that community, galvanizing, but also like.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So trying to do everything, right? And so it's like, how do I, maybe this is just me asking people in the community, if you know, tell me, right? How do I work with the folks who I'm serving right now and also quench this idea of wanting to serve and help the larger community, the larger collectives, you know, bigger as society, right? As all of the people as well. How do I take little me? It's the same thing with like, you know, the whole global warming thing, right? How do you as an individual make that impact so that you can, you know, be part of that ripple effect? I find that in my work. How do I do that and not take on all of these projects, because I want to do all these projects. I want to work with all these people. I want to be able to serve community in all these different ways. But it's also like, I also need to live and survive and to breathe and to like enjoy my life. So I'm trying to do things that are, once again, more enjoyable for me. And I think once you start to jump in joy a little bit more, especially for how it feels for yourself in your own body, that's where you can start to like regulate, because you can start to feel the things that don't bring you joy. And hopefully you have opportunity, power dynamic to choose to divest away from the things that don't bring you joy. But I think starting with joy would be a good place. I don't know. I feel like it's time for a takeaway. I don't know why. I'm like, oh, well, this is my takeaway. Jump into joy and divest from things that don't bring you joy.
Ooh.
Buy it now for 99 cents. I'm just kidding. I have no joy for you to buy for 99 cents. I'm just playing, y'all.
That's a good takeaway. That's a good one. You should get that like on a t-shirt, like a tattoo, like tell everybody, just to like let everybody know. I like that. I'm gonna apply that to my life. I'll report back to you and I'll let you know how I do with that this week. My takeaway, I think again, it's always that like language piece. I'm like a huge language nerd fanatic, and I think changing my language, like Nataizya had mentioned, from could and should to like can and will, and also being compassionate and saying, you know, I will try, and like being explicit and going, I may be at capacity, and like communicating that to people who are asking for stuff and making requests, and you know, being self-reflective and going, yes, this may give me more clout or more platform or more professional tokens, but in the now, is it gonna really be beneficial? Like, is it gonna help to ground me, or is it gonna pull me and throw me into a tailspin? So I think that explicit language of how to like goal and vision and do that for myself is important.
Mm-hmm. I like that too.
Mm-hmm. Nataizya, what's your takeaway?
Don't know. I was like literally looking and I was like, I don't know what my takeaway is.
You just sit there like,
I know. I was like, I don't know. Let's see. I think having like boundaries and saying no to myself is my takeaway. I think I've done really well with my people boundaries, but I haven't done well with my own. So that's something I need to learn to practice more, and just like, okay, no, you don't need to do this, or no, you don't have to look at this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was gonna, while you were thinking about that, I was gonna tell a little story about like mini little itty bitty Elle or Michelle when she was younger in the groomings for this high functioning, high performing Black girl. When I was in grade 3, I was chosen by the vice principal. I was like the vice principal's pet, and I went with her to like a little conference for like principals and everything. That's my grooming as to like the high functioning person that I am today.
wow, you went to a principal's conference?
Yeah, so they all picked one child from their school, and out of the whole school, she picked me.
Why? Why would you want to bring children to a conference?
So it's like all the principals picked one kid, and like all the kids had like their own thing, and all the, anyway.
Oh, I guess it's like an experience. I guess for the experience, but it's quite unnecessary.
Oh,
I mean, honestly. It is completely unnecessary. You could have that experience at school. They could have just took that money to pay for the conference, to pay for something that the kids could do in the school. That way you involve all the kids and you're still focusing on the kids. Who cares about your principal conference? Sometimes, institutions, they like to just spend money. Then they're like, oh, we don't have any money. We can't pay for lunches. And then here, taking children to principal conferences for no reason. Stupid. I'm sorry, y'all.
I had a really good time, but
okay. I know. I was like,
I'm glad you had a good time, but like then you're saying, oh, this is my grooming to being high functioning. It's like, yeah, but was it a good time? No, because now you have 4 screens and you have 4 projects that you're working on every damn day. You still at the principal's conference.
Oh man, I never left.
Exactly. This is the thing. This is the conditioning. This is how pervasive it is. It's wild. I could sit here and talk about this all day, but
Anyways, I think that's the episode. Thank you all for sharing and divulging your experiences. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Make sure that you listen on Spotify, watch it on YouTube, check out our Black Women Connect Vancouver Instagram page. Yes, I'm going to pass it off to Nataizya. I want.
Is that your remix or rewinding?
I'm just saying everybody should check it out on platforms. I'm gonna say that. There we go. That's
No, I was just gonna say that we have an Instagram page for our podcast. So
okay.
follow
I
our
wasn't sure if
Instagram.
you were like sharing it or not. So yes, we have a now newly established Instagram page for Girl You Know It, the podcast. Check it out. It's fantastic. There's so many posts. There's so many good little nuggets, and we're excited to connect with you and engage with you on our separate Girl You Know It Instagram account. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It's always amazing to get an opportunity to chat with these lovely ladies. So if you're looking to follow us off of the podcast and you're looking to catch up with some of the content that we have, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube, all at Black Women Connect Vancouver. And we also have a website for you at blackwomenconnectvancouver.com, which is where you can sign up for our mailing list and our newsletter so you can keep updated with our growth and all of the other